Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Uh, I'm Ali Hassan and today I'm going to teach you about food traceability and authenticity. It's basically a basic course of Masters in Food Safety and Quality Management, and the title of the course is FSQM-710 and credit hour is 321. So it has two credit hours of theory and one credit hour for the practical. So what is food safety and traceability? These two terms are basically interconnected with each other because you can you can't complete the food safety operations and food safety requirements without the process of traceability. If you want to fulfill the traceability and food safety conditions, then you have to apply some kind of or implement some kind of uh, system, the traceability system. You can go for the ISO 22005 and or you can maintain your internal traceability systems. There's a basic question: what is the difference between food safety and food quality? As you all know, that food safety is basically a thing, or you can say a process or a parameter that defines that whenever a food is consumed, then it can be easily you can say consumed, or it doesn't cause any harm to the consumer. Wherever if we talk about the food quality, then food quality is basically a parameter that is different for each and every individual. Why it is different? Because quality is basically you can say termed as the consumer's perception, and quality can be changed from a person to person, or it vary its criteria from a person to person. The quality can be manipulated depending on your consumers, whereas you can't manipulate safety, because if a food is safe, then it's safe for all, and if it's not safe, then it's unsafe for all. Let's start. Food safety encompasses actions aimed at ensuring that all food is as safe as possible, covering the entire food chain from production to consumption. As we can assess from this sentence, that from production to consumption, we have to maintain a system to ensure the food safety in that supply chain. For this system, traceability is the key. Traceability plays a key role that provides us with a system where we can, you can say, find out any kind of food safety hazards. What is traceability? Traceability is the ability to trace the history, application, or location of that which is under consideration. The traceability is the ability to trace the history. History means if you are acquiring a product, or if you are buying a product from any market, then you would be able to trace back its history, that where it comes from and where the raw materials are being collected or for that product, and where it should be going, and where what are the processes under which these products that you are consuming are being produced, and application or location of that which is under consideration. Whatever the product is, you have to know its proper manufacturing procedure, or its, you can say, origin. Okay, so when related to a product, the traceability defines its origin, the materials and parts, whether you are talking about any kind of food material or any you can say mechanical parts, or any product in the market that you are going to discuss, or that you're going to trace. Then the processing history. What are the different processes that are being used to manufacture that product? This is basically the processing history. And the third one is the distribution and location of the product after the delivery. For instance, that if you have sold out that product, or you have transferred it or transported it to your distributors, and distributors have further transported it to different, you can say, the retailers in their areas. If a foodborne illness, or if an outbreak, or if any problem in any product occurs, then the distributor or the consumer or your QA department of your industry, uh, it would be able to trace back the origin of the uh, problem. But first you have to find the location that where those products are being delivered, so that you can recall those products, or you can withdraw those products, or put them in the quarantine or isolation. So it is mandatory to apply these procedures to that industry. So we'll move to the next slide. So here's a reference, or you can say here's a clause in the ISO 9001. The ISO 9001 document has a requirement that if you're applying ISO 9001 to any industry, whether we are talking about any food industry or any pharmaceutical or any textile industry, then you have to apply the traceability system on it. Okay, in particular, if we talk about the food industry, then it is essential within the HACCP system to be able to trace the batches of raw materials or the products in the event of failure at a CCP. For example, if you are running a food industry, or you are running a juice industry, and your CCP fails at some point, for let's say your CCP fails at pasteurization point. So what you need to do, you would be able to trace that product from the market for which your CCP has, or you can say, uh, exceeded, or you can say remains far behind your CCP range or your critical limit. So you have to trace that product. For that purpose, you have to have a record for the CCP evaluation or the CCP monitoring. That is an example of food traceability. So in that case, you have to apply the traceability system on that industry. So this is a reference that if you don't have any traceability system, then you can't be able to apply ISO 9000 in your industry. So you would have to apply or implement your traceability system at first. So here's another reference, clause 4.8 part 2 of ISO 9000. It's the older version of they still have that clause in their updated parts for in the 2015 one. So a written recall plan should be initiated and maintained in order to minimize the effect of any failure by being able to trace and withdraw any defective product. So a written recall plan, it means whenever you're talking about the traceability plan, then you have to have a recall and a withdrawal plan devised separately. If in case of any type of foodborne illness or any foodborne outbreak, you have to initiate that recall plan or the withdrawal plan, depending on the nature of the problem and depending upon the nature of your product. So this reference also acknowledges the importance of the traceability system in your different you can say food safety systems or the quality management system in the international standards. So there are some examples of traceability tools and labels. These are from the different countries. If we talk about the Lithuania, they are using initials of animal recording centers. For example, agricultural, Information and Rural Business Development Center. They're also using the 2-digit country code, for example, LT, and 6-digit individual animal identification number. These are for the farms that are basically rearing those animals only for the meat purposes. So this is an example of that tag, the animal tag, or the traceability of that meat. So here's another example of Germany where they are where they are recording the information by cattle passport. What are the informations that they are recording? These are the date of issue, when the animals have been assigned any kind of passport or any kind of traceability mechanisms. Then ear tag number, they are also using the tags on the forms. Its origin from different places, and then name and address of the owner of that farm where it is being reared. Uh, Another example is from Belgium. That's a piece of beef steak, and there's a barcode on the upper on the medium of the on the medium side of this tag, and this barcode explains all the information, or embedded with all the information that from which these steaks are have gone through. Okay. And then country where animal was born, for example it is in Belgium, or it is somewhere else, but the steak could be sold in Belgium, so it must have these kind of labels on it. Country where animal was fattened or reared, and where it was slaughtered. We need to have all the details on this label as per the regulations of the Belgium. Here's another example of fruits where origin, category, weight, and traceability code is being recorded on the label of that origin. So, moving on to the different types or the areas of the traceability. According to the European Union, traceability can be defined as the ability to trace and follow a food, feed, and food producing animal or substance intended to be or expected to be incorporated into a food or feed through all stages of production and distribution. So it means that anything that we are growing, or that we are uh, intending to be a part of our food or the foods of animal uh, are um, are being included in the traceability mechanism. So the main areas of the traceability are, first one is the production system traceability. It involves the verification of the farming system and production inputs such as fertilizers, chemicals, sprays, use of water, feeds and supplements, labor, workplace condition, etc. etc. So these are the production systems traceability, where we are using all the input suppliers and different kinds of things that are being used for producing that food are included in the production system traceability, and the production system traceability covers it. Next one is process system traceability. It involves the authentication of any processing and post-harvest activities and treatments such as washing, storage conditions, additives, or chemicals used, and temperature conditions. So these are all the conditions that the food have been gone through. These are the traceability systems. For example, if you are using the pasteurization mechanism, or if you are using the sorting and grading mechanisms, and different type of operations that from which the food have been through, are all included in the process system traceability. Then the pest and disease traceability. Pest and disease traceability specifically involves the assurance that food have not been infested or you can say infected from any kind of pests or diseases. And for this, integrated pest management is a very fine process that is being used for the traceability mechanisms as well. So these are three main areas of the traceability. So what are the types of the traceability? There are two types of traceability. First one is internal traceability. Internal traceability is the traceability of the product and the information relating to it within the company. So this is the internal traceability. Internal traceability, if we take an example of an industry, that is the processing industry, it doesn't have anything to do with the supplier or the production system traceability. If you have to maintain a traceability system just for its process, then it should be within the industry. It can be exemplified as the internal traceability. Whereas if we talk about the external traceability, if that industry, the industry for which I have given you the example, if that industry is also willing to audit any external industry or any external supplier uh, that used to supply that industry the goods that are required as a raw material for their product, then it would be an external traceability, because they are going to audit another industry for their product. So trace back and trace forward, there are mainly two ways of tracing products. First one is trace back, and second, that is looking at the suppliers, and trace forward, that is looking at the customers. So tracing backward is mainly helpful for knowing the origin of the ingredients or the products. Moving backward towards supply in the supply chain, termed as the tracing backward, and tracing forward is moving towards the distributors or towards the consumers. This is the tracing forward. So tracing forward is the most important tool to find out the location of the produced ingredients, so where it is being produced, and products or materials, and where it has been delivered, or where it is delivering to the consumers or the retailers, anywhere you want to know. Then product recall is basically if you find out that there's a problem in your product, then you have to recall it to maintain your repute, or to maintain the integrity of your company, and to avoid any type of legal penalties or any type of legal any type of indulgence in your court issues. So for this purpose, recall is a better option to maintain your repute. uh, the recall is an effort to limit liability for corporate negligence and to avoid the damage to the public, and also recalls are costly to a company because they often entail replacing the recalled product or paying for damages caused in use. So to avoid all these things, recall methods are being used. So there's a difference between recall and withdrawal. Recall shall mean any measure aimed at achieving the return of a dangerous product that has already been supplied or made available to the customers by the producer or the distributor. And whereas withdrawal shall mean any measure aimed at preventing the distribution, display, and offer of the product dangerous to the consumer. So the next one is product recall procedure. Whenever we find that our product is malicious, or there's a problem in our product, then how we can find it? We can find it by the customer complaints, illness outbreaks, or results of the tests, etc. Then we can initiate a recall procedure. After that, identification of the product, the first thing that we have to do is to identify the lot or the batch that contains 100, that could contains 100 of those products. or 100 of those malicious products. Then risk assessment, in which we assess the seriousness of the problem, whether it is going to have a negative impact or it is, you can say, bearable. So decision making, whether you're going for the product recall or you can manage this thing by any other way. So because product recall is a costly process, so we have to decide it first, and to utilize the other options as well. Then notify the relevant regulatory authority. In case of Pakistan, we can use the Punjab Food Authority as a regulatory authority. Then implement the recall plan. Recall plan, it has some sub steps, that is scope of the recall, that what it is going to be cover, what kind of products it is going to cover, and tracing documentation. Where tracing documentation means where the problem exists, and where are our products located, and how to recall it. Then communication, we can use the distribution network for recalling it, or we can use the retailers network for recalling it. And isolation and quarantine, and then put it in quarantine after acquiring those products. And then public notification and documentation. Public can be informed by using a notice or public notice that this product has been recovered, and now the further products are safe, etc. Then terminate the recall plan. After that, recall plan is you can say is ended, and review recall plan. Then afterwards we review our recall plan, that is there any problem with that recall plan, and is there any improvement chances for the further you can say recall procedures, and any further improvements in our system. Follow-up actions, how we can make our product better. So what are the benefits of the traceability? First one is the cost reduction of the product recall, that we don't need to recall our products frequently, and it would be a huge cost reduction for our industry. Then reduction of number of brands or production sites concerned by recall. For a multi-site or multi-brand company, number of brands or production sites concerned, it can be reduced of the loss of the consumer confidence in case of serious food safety problem. Reduction of the loss of consumer confidence. Consumers can easily be manipulated by any kind of negative news about your company in the market. And very important in case of major foodborne illness outbreaks, to provide the statutory and regulatory authorities to control the situation. That can also build an environment of confidence between your industry and the regulatory authorities. It also helps the manufacturer evidence in case of due diligence litigation. Yes, it can. There are some examples of the traceability issues. First one is from Sudan. Sudan, one identified in Worcester sauce. An illegal dye has been used for the food, for the spices, red chili, and there was no internal traceability, and it has given a loss of about 100 to 200 million pounds to the UK industry. And like this, there was another example, food scares of BSE in French beef sausages. Sausages were produced from the meat that has BSE traces in it, and that has also you can say given a huge loss to the French market, and it was recalled in 2001. So this was our lecture for food traceability and authenticity. It was an introductory lecture. So next time we'll come with another lecture. Thank you.